You ever feel just stuck, paralyzed by some huge decision? You're caught between what you think you should do and what you actually feel you can do? Well, it turns out you're not alone. Thousands of years ago, a legendary warrior had the ultimate meltdown right on a battlefield, and the advice he got? That's what we're going to decode today. And this isn't some dusty old history lesson. Nope, this is a practical guide for those battles we're all fighting, the ones inside our own heads.
And what's crazy is that the questions this warrior, Arjuna, was asking back then, they're the exact same questions we ask ourselves today. Why are we here? Why do we chase success so hard only to feel kind of empty at the end of it all? Why does it feel like as soon as we overcome one challenge, another one just pops up? The Bhagavad Gita, it just dives right into the deep end of this stuff, right into the human condition. And the answers, well, they all start on a battlefield.
So, let's go there. Section 1. The Battlefield Within. We're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just like in the text. But here's the twist. The real war, the one that truly matters, it isn't the one with swords and arrows. It's the war happening inside the mind of the single greatest warrior on that field.
I mean, just picture this. You've got Arjuna, a guy whose reputation is basically undefeatable. He's the best of the best. And he just collapses. He completely loses his nerve. Why? Because he looks across the battlefield and sees his own family, his teachers, his cousins, his grandfathers. They're all on the other side. And he is just completely paralyzed by grief and confusion.
And listen to what he says. What use is kingdom, pleasures, or even life? I foresee only evil omens. I mean, wow. That is a level of despair I think we can all recognize on some level, right? When you're faced with a truly gut-wrenching conflict, all the things you normally chase after, success, pleasure, the good life, it all just seems pointless. He has hit absolute rock bottom.
So, here we are in Section 2, the science of completion. Because Krishna, who is Arjuna's guide and charioteer, how does he respond to this? Does he give him a big pep talk? Go get him, tiger! Nope. Does he give him a new battle strategy? Not at all. He offers something way, way deeper. He basically lays out a practical science, a whole new framework for how to live. See, the answer to Arjuna's despair, and let's be real, our despair too, it isn't about some battle strategy. It has nothing to do with winning or losing the fight out there. It's all about reaching a certain state of being on the inside. And the Gita gives this state a name. It calls it completion. So what is completion? Let's be really clear here. It's not about getting amnesia or pretending the past didn't happen. Not at all. It's about living without the emotional hangover from your past. You remember everything, sure. The incidents, the words, the memories, they're all still there. But they just don't have power over you anymore. The guilt, the anger, the regret, it's like their grip just loosens and they can't control your present. Okay, so how do you get there?
The Gita lays out a path to completion, and it's built on 4 really powerful principles. First up is integrity. This is all about honoring your word, both to other people and crucially to yourself. It's as simple and as hard as doing what you said you were going to do. Second, authenticity. This means you're not faking it. You're responding to life from who you really are. Third, we have responsibility. This is a big one. It's about owning that you are the source of your reactions to things. And finally, enriching, making a positive contribution to the lives of others. And these aren't just, nice-sounding words. They're actual actionable steps you can take.
All right, Section 3, winning your inner war. This is where things get really interesting because the Gita uses this epic family feud, the Pandavas versus the Kauravas, as a massive metaphor. It's not just some old story about a war. It's a symbolic map for the battle happening inside every single one of us. Yeah, this inner conflict is framed as a war between 2 sides of your very own consciousness. We're not talking about good guys and bad guys out there in the world. No, this is a map of your mind. It's a showdown between your highest, best self and all those destructive patterns that keep holding you back.
Let's break down this battlefield of the mind. On one side, you have the Pandavas. They represent your highest possibilities. What are they? Well, it's those 4 principles we just talked about: integrity, authenticity, responsibility, and enriching. And on the other side, you've got the Kauravas. They are your root patterns, the stuff that trips you up.
We're talking about self-doubt, self-denial, and self-hatred. This is the inner army we're all up against every single day.
And to make this enemy within even clearer, the text gives these negative patterns actual personalities. So self-doubt, personified by the character Dhritarashtra, is blind. It literally can't see the truth of a situation. Self-denial, or Duryodhana, is described as just plain stupid. It's arrogant and makes choices that lead to its own destruction. And then there's self-hatred, Shakuni, who is incredibly cunning. He's the one in the background, always whispering, scheming, and trying to trip you up. See how that makes them easier to spot in yourself?
So let's say you do it. You win this inner war. What's the payoff? What's the ultimate prize? Well, this brings us to section 4, the self beyond time. This is where the Gita drops its biggest, most profound truth, the truth about who you really are, underneath it all.
And to get this idea across, the book tells this brilliant little story. Imagine a lion cub. It gets separated from its family when it's just tiny and ends up being raised by a flock of sheep. It grows up completely, 100% convinced that it is a sheep.
So this little lion cub, it bleats like a sheep, it nibbles on grass, it lives in fear, just like they do. Its whole reality is sheep. But then one day, a huge, powerful lion finds this cub, and it drags the little guy to a lake and forces it to look at its own reflection. And then it gives it its first taste of real lion food, meat.
And in that one instant, everything changes. It's not that the cub becomes a lion, no. It realizes it was a lion the whole time. It was always there, just buried under the belief that it was a sheep. And the Gita's big point here is, that's us. We are the lion.
This really gets to the core of it. The quote says it all. You are more than what you believe as you, because what you believe as you is framed by your root patterns. In other words, our identity, the person we think we are, is often just a little box built by our own insecurities, our own inner Kauravas. We're living our lives believing we're the sheep, when our true nature is the lion.
And then it goes even deeper. The self that you're realizing isn't just about being powerful like a lion. It's about being an eternal consciousness. As the Gita says, the body is just the shell that houses your spirit. Even when the body perishes, you do not. Think about that. Your body is just a temporary ride. The real you, your spirit, can't be destroyed.
So if you really take that in, what's the number of times you have truly died? According to this philosophy, it's 0. A big fat 0. You are never really born, you'll never really die. This life we're living is just one chapter in a much, much longer story.
And this entire journey, this whole process of self-discovery, it leads to the Gita's most radical, most profound claim. The ultimate prize, the final realization, isn't just, oh, I'm strong, or I'm complete. The text says it's the direct, undeniable experience that you are God, that your true core nature is divine.
Okay, so let's bring this back down to earth. What does all this mean for us, right now, in our day-to-day lives? That brings us to our last section, waking up from life. Because the Gita's final message isn't about escaping the world. It's about waking up inside of it and finally being free to really, truly live.
The goal here isn't to spend the rest of your life in a constant battle with your inner demons. That sounds exhausting. The real goal is to achieve what the text calls living enlightenment. It's a state of being where you're so grounded in that feeling of completion that the war itself just stops. It's not that you won, it's that there's nothing left to fight.
So if it's so great, why is it so hard to get there? Well, just look at how most of us live. Think about where your mental energy goes all day. A huge chunk of it, maybe 45%, is tied up in the past. Guilt, regret, replaying old conversations. Another 45% is probably spent on the future. Anxiety, what-ifs, fantasies. That leaves what, 10% for the actual present moment? And the present, that's the only place completion can ever happen.
And that leaves us with one last really provocative question to chew on. Think about this. We've all had that experience of waking up from a super intense, vivid dream, maybe a nightmare, and that massive wave of relief when you realize, oh, thank God it wasn't real. The Gita leaves us with this final thought. What if this real life, with all its stress, all its anxiety, all its battles,
What if it's also just a dream? A dream that we can awaken from? What if it was? What would change for you right now if you knew you could wake up?